Okay, this is the Wednesday, February 10th Audit Committee meeting. It's 5:37 p.m. We're going to start the meeting. I guess we should probably just take a quick roll call so we have for the record everybody who's here. Stephanie, do you just want to count that off, I guess?
Sure. Commissioner Link. Commissioner Davenport.
Here.
Commissioner Edwards.
Here.
Commissioner Myers.
Here. I
have Commissioner Wright as absent, and County Manager Blaine checked in, and we have Visitor Commissioner Avita Thornton on the call right now.
Okay, thank you. We've got our minutes from the last two meetings. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the minutes from, what is it, November, I guess, Monday, November 30th? Does anybody want to make that motion?
I just wanted to take just 1 second and look at something, but yeah, I'll make the motion.
Okay.
In just a minute.
Okay, share. Can I share this?
I keep forgetting I can't make motions and vote, so I got ready to jump in there, but okay.
I'm trying to share the agenda, but I'm having continued challenges.
I've got my document open.
Do you know how to share, like load it up on the screen?
I've never done that in WebEx. I don't know if I could.
Okay. Is there a share button at the bottom?
Okay, I moved to approve November 30th.
Does that?
I second.
Okay.
I second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Did Commissioner Myers second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I'm looking at the October 14th right now. Just a moment.
Did we not approve those?
We did, but there was one item that needed to be updated, and that was Commissioner Wright left the meeting a little early, and I notated that at the end of the agenda item on the second page. That was the one revision on that.
Okay, so we're just revising those minutes.
It's just an update that says that the time that she left the meeting.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And then there are January 27th minutes.
Okay.
Okay, just a second. January 22nd.
7th? Is it?
Oh, January 7th.
Oh, I think the date is wrong on the top.
Uh-oh.
It says meeting minutes Wednesday, February 10th. That's today. That's.
Oh, yes.
So we want to amend that.
I will. I'll check that. I'll do that right now.
Yeah. January 27th.
27th. Got it. I apologize, everybody.
Oh.
Okay.
Just one moment. Sorry.
Melissa, maybe while he says that, you can explain something to me. I know that Allison said that there was something she wanted to update in the minutes. Can you update them? Can we approve the minutes and then update them again, have a revised one, like we just did with we just approved revised ones that Stephanie had added on something.
I mean, we just did that. There's a process do we want to hold off on approving these minutes? And wait till, because she did mention
Yeah. I mean, I don't see a problem with that. I mean, we can hold off just as a courtesy to Allison. I mean, I don't think that's a big issue, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then let's hold off on approving these November minutes. We want to go ahead and approve.
Or the January, right?
Is that the January or the November?
Yeah, that was the January.
Yeah, we approved November and October. We're talking about the January right now.
Okay. All right, well, we can hold off on approving those. But I mean, we didn't approve the November minutes at that January meeting. I'm not sure if those were the minutes that she had an issue with, but I guess we can go back and change it if possible.
Oh, I thought she said the January ones were ones she had a question about.
Stephanie, because I remember when we began the January meeting, she asked why we weren't approving the November minutes.
Yeah, I think she's talking about January.
Okay, well, we'll look at these next month then. Okay.
That's right. That's correct. Commissioner Edwards is right.
Okay. Well, then let's go ahead and hear about the work plan status. And also, if you want to give us an update on the staffing.
Okay. The three things are the fleet management program audit. That audit, I hope to wrap it up and also meet with the director this month and then submit it to you all as the draft for review, as well as to the other parties that will receive it. The animal services report, I tentatively have a meeting scheduled with the director in a few weeks. The week of the 22nd of February to wrap up have our final discussion. We had a discussion so long ago, and I want to review the major conclusions before the draft is sent out to everyone. And then the hiring process, the hiring that's going on in the office. I've been working with Bettina over in the HR department on rewriting the job description, and I'm almost finished with that. The next stage is for her to review it and submit it to the payroll division. There's a possibility the title of that position may change, which I think it should, but there's a couple of incremental steps before it can actually be reposted. She did not feel that it would be a lengthy process, but I should have my final edits for the job description to her. We discuss by tomorrow or the next day, and then she'll turn it over to the payroll division to continue with their process.
Okay.
The goal would be to start advertising this at the end of this month. That would be the goal, but I don't know for sure yet until I talk with her.
Okay.
Stephanie, is that changing the qualifications for the job as well?
Yes. Clarifying, more so that's clarifying the actual duties of the job that's actually performed. The management analyst job description was very generic, and I found that there was possibly some disappointment, on either side, on both sides, just because of false expectations, which are natural. However, when you get into the position and your job is different, it did not read like an auditor's office job description. And I spoke with HR about changing that, and they were supportive. And I received a couple of examples from other governments of job titles as well as job descriptions for the positions under the audit to their evaluation period.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions about any of those issues? Okay. I guess we should go on to continue our discussion about the Overview Commission's report. I mean, I know things got a little heated last month, and we probably all have different opinions on how to move forward responding to that report. Does anyone else have any issues or concerns or want to continue that discussion?
I just wanted to remind everybody that I'm a lawyer and a small business owner. With that said, I yield the floor.
Melissa, can I just have a clarification? The audit insight preparation document that was, or maybe this is Stephanie, that was sent out. Is that the one that was presented by Huned and Beth Higgins? this isn't a new one that like Stephanie's presenting, right? Is this? Yeah. Okay. I see it now.
It's the same exact one. We just changed the title because it sounded too close to the terminology that the committee uses for something else. So we switched it. They switched it a couple of months ago to the insights briefing.
Okay. All right. Okay.
It's the same presentation that they originally gave in October.
Can I ask? I've been trying to do some homework on this since the last time we met, and because I don't have experience in this auditing language. And I actually met with Beth Higgins last Friday just to like do like a one-on-one on this, because I was like, I've had a lot of new things that I'm trying to digest and understand. And I think one of the things that I got, and I don't know if this is bringing the discussion in a different way, but the discussion of the internal audit systems and what's the other phrase? I am so sorry. This is more jargon.
Internal controls.
Internal controls. And I had to like sort of get my head around that. And I just want to see if I understand this now. Because after talking with her and reading some materials that I have there, it seemed to me that these internal controls are in the government departments themselves, and they should be keeping track and documenting what they are and doing internal updates that are separate from the auditor's office, that just are part of like good business. I mean, it's anything from policies to, if you were going to say like in education, you have accreditation reviews, but this like looking at the policies for hiring, what they are and how you make sure that you're not doing this. Are those internal controls for the different departments of the government written down in documents for each department?
And see, this is kind of where I think that's a good question, because I think this really triggers, a very broad look at our government. And, at what point does the manager's office get involved here to really speak to how these various departments are structured and where the check-ins are, where the internal controls are?
Yeah. And it seemed to me that was the part that I was missing, is that this should be going along with what the auditor's office is doing. And so, Blaine, are you going to speak to that?
Sure. So as far as, an overarching uniform, we've got, 37, 40 different, operations or agencies here, some are overseen by department heads, some by constitutional officers. There is no overarching uniform internal control system, and maybe that's the ideal that we shoot for. I know the police department, the sheriff's department, the fire department, they get accreditations. We have an external auditor that looks at our finances, and they remark on certain controls over finance approval, over approvals of money, such as, and every year you invariably hear about, the lack of appropriate, and you'll hear this at the next work session next week. External auditors come in and talk about that, and usually in some of our smaller constitutional officers, they would prefer that you have yet another staff person in there reviewing some of the transactions. And then, that's as it relates to financial controls. So we don't have a single uniform, robust system. I'm sure that we could tighten a lot of things up. I do think that there's room for that discussion when we do programmatic audits. But if you want me to come back and report on the current status, that's something we can look into.
Well, I would think I'm like, and I may be stretching things here, but I don't think I am that much after talking with Beth for an hour and a half, but that I'm transferring this to an academic situation. And there need to be, like, there are policies, like how you deal so that you don't get caught, illegally dealing with students and student complaints, or with hiring, or with academic dishonesty, and that you have to follow those things. And so in the academic world, the course catalog, which is now online, is sort of like your Bible, that you have all the policies in, that you go back to for your accreditation and write reports on. So I'm just like wondering, is like, where are all those policies that one would see that would have to do with these risks? And actually, this is like interesting. Today, I got an email from someone in my district. It's like they wrote this for this meeting for me. And it's a person who is concerned about internal controls. And he's writing because he says there's a water treatment plant in Florida where the controls were breached and sodium hydroxide was put in. This was all done from an IT perspective. And he says, I have every confidence that the people who operate our treatment facilities here are competent, and put the public safety ahead of all. That's why I'm writing you. Updating and securing these control systems is expensive. So, I mean, there's a risk there. Do we have like written policies and reports that are made about the policies that have to do with keeping our water systems and sewage, clean and up to date, and how they're checked? Wouldn't that would be an internal control system, right, Blaine?
Well, I don't know the definition of that, but obviously we have, rigorous compliance policies. I mean, we get platinum awards for our treatment plants and water reclamation facilities for, compliance. The FAA comes and inspects the airport, and we have to respond to that. So I don't know, Commissioner Myers, if it's called like internal control per se, and it certainly bears some scrutiny. But we do have a system to make sure that there are, safeguards in place to some degree. I'm sure we could do better in certain areas.
Yeah, and I guess that's what it seemed to me from talking to Beth that those safeguards and policies would be in place. She has experience working with the airport and was saying she has a lot of respect for the people there, but how do you know that, she was just giving me these sort of examples of things. And then I would say to her, so what is an internal system of control? And I'd give an example like this. And she'd say, yes, that's it. Like, if you have some policy about how you're, making sure that your IT is not going to be infiltrated, and you're going and you're checking that every 6 months and you check off the box, that's an internal control system, and that we as commissioners should be like aware of how that's working. And so I was thinking then the audit, like if that's written down and there are reports in those riskier places, then the auditor has something to start with when he or she goes into those to review. So again, I'm just doing a real auditing.
And that's kind of that line of questioning, Commissioner Myers, is sort of where I was going with the risk. Sorry, the risk safety assessment. What do we call it? The tool that we came up with last year.
The risk assessment.
Yeah, so sort of have a baseline analysis of every department to identify some of those vulnerabilities, so that we could not just get them on an audit schedule, but also say, oh, here's an opportunity for some programmatic internal controls.
Yeah. No, and I think that's what I got, that those places should be doing this sort of self-reporting. And it shouldn't just be the auditor's office doing it. We should be able to say, hey, IT, how do you make sure that we're not going to get, someone's not going to hold us up for ransom and say, you need to give us $3 million before we let them. So, I mean.
Well, I'd like to speak to that very briefly, because that is a highly sensitive area. And just because you don't hear anything from us doesn't mean that we don't have a very robust system in place. I have thought from time to time to bring that to the commission, but, it doesn't do us any good to advertise how we prevent those things from happening. And so in a very public forum.
Yeah, that's true. That should be, that's true. That should be top secret, our defenses.
On that particular one.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know I don't want to know the details. I'm not going to understand them anyway. So, you just want to have sort of reports that it's being reviewed, regularly. That's all I would say. So that's just me coming in from the outside in my auditing 101. And I'm trying to understand what the role of the committee is and how it functions with the auditor and the management and the departments.
May I speak on that, Commissioner
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
So some examples of internal controls are, the major one is policy and procedures. And it's what I usually start with the departments is one of the items that we request. We don't call it that because I know it's more of a technical term on our side. But what I found in our office is that there are departments that have clear, specific policies and procedures outlined, and there are departments that don't have any. So your question about earlier, is it consistent? Do all departments have it? I think my feedback from departments is, well, it really hadn't been necessary, but we'll be happy to put something together. I found I think almost every department willing to beef it up or actually establish something like that if they hadn't had that before, just knowing how important it is, and also available to employees. The other examples of internal controls are just consistency in the treatment of employees, like training, promotion, time off, segregation of duties, like Manager Williams stated earlier. Whenever it's a financial transaction, there should always be two people, and that is not the case in some departments just because of the size of the department. So there has to be something built in to not expose that employee, put that one employee at risk. IT just established an internal control about 2 or 3 months ago, and I imagine they were receiving a large amount of spam, and they initiated just a hyperlink or a button on our Outlook email where we thought we received spam. We could just go ahead and report it instead of picking up the phone and actually calling and having them remote into our computer, and they would check. That takes up a little time on both sides. But they implemented this tab for us to just go ahead and self-report it on our own, and they will look at it, review it, and let us know within a matter of less than an hour or just a little over an hour. It's not long at all if it is indeed a threat, and to delete it from your computer, or it's not a threat. So that's a great internal control because they're trying to keep up with the spam and what type of spam that's coming in. Just in general, to summarize and address your question, there are departments that are doing it. Not all departments are doing it. I think it would be great just to have some education for the departments, education provided to departments on what internal controls are expected at the very minimum, and consistent for every department. There will be differences, but just the basics like the policies and the procedures, communicating with staff, or requesting or training, stuff like that. Those are all consistent with every single department, and I think the organization would benefit if there was something consistent and systematic for those basic internal controls.
I was going to sit here and just listen today, but now I am totally confused, and I need to backtrack. And I'm going to go back to Commissioner Edwards' question at the last meeting about Beth looking at our what did we work so hard to do, the
risk assessment.
The risk assessment. So now I'm back to listening to you. That sounded very, 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 very detailed and very knowledgeable. So now I'm wondering then, doesn't the risk assessment do those things? And have we gotten like a report on where we are? I mean, I thought that was the purpose of the risk assessment.
Yes, and yes. The risk assessment, there were questions in the risk assessment that spoke to identifying if there were strong if internal controls existed, and if so, if they were strong or if they were weak, if there was any room to improve, and that data was given a score, and it was applied to the total score for that particular department. And that report, the total scores for all departments, went out, I believe, September 16th or so, that the week of the 16th, where it lists the departments and their scores. But you're correct. They tie in together, and our questions did address some of the internal controls.
Stephanie, I think, who knows if I actually did it this morning or not, if I emailed you to say, could I get a copy of that risk assessment tool and the results of that? Did we have that? Has that been distributed to us? A lot of this stuff is vague for me, until I see it and then I go, oh, now I understand what it is. So, can we get a copy of what was sent out and the tool that was used to collect the data, and then what the data was, the results from this study?
Mm-hmm. The final result, the tool that was used to collect the data.
Yeah.
And I think that when we were reviewing the full program, the committee at one point wanted to see some of the questions. Would you be interested in that document as well?
Oh yeah, whatever. If a department had to answer it, right, they were given something. So what were they given? If I was the head of leisure services, what would I have had to fill out? I just want to see what that is so I can understand what we're talking about.
I will send it out to the full committee.
Yeah, and then also the results, if there's a tabulation of the results or something that I can understand what came from that.
Stephanie, I'm not on the committee, but I would like a copy, because now this conversation, especially since Beth is not on it, and I think Commissioner Edwards wanted her to see what we have. This conversation right now, to me, Madam Chair, who I know I'm not on the committee, is almost mute now, because we may be already doing what Beth suggested. Maybe, I don't know, or maybe it needs to be improved upon. So I don't know what else y'all could do as a committee to move this forward. But right now, it seems that everybody needs to be brought up to date, and it's not confidential, is it, Stephanie?
The risk assessment?
Yeah.
No, I will actually.
No, I'm wondering if it's confidential that Beth could see it. That was the reason, since she's not on the call.
I provided it to her since the last meeting, the results.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, Madam Chair, I don't know where you're going to go with this, but I don't see.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Davenport. Yes, I remember the last meeting that the auditor was going to send, or somebody was going to send, the risk assessment to Ms. Higgins. Were there any follow-up from her? Did she respond? Did she respond by she reviewing it and get back in touch with us, or what's the status of that?
Not yet. I will follow up with her tomorrow and check in. She could not make today's meeting, but I will follow up with her and I'll send the committee an update. But if I could speak to Commissioner Thornton's question, the risk assessment, like Chair Higgins stated last week, is a small piece of the big process. And she was overall trying to communicate, I believe, that the benefit of a strategic plan that was based on programmatic goals. And the risk assessment will get us there. But there's also, we can also do an internal assessment without the risk assessment, just by polling the departments to see if there's a list of risks, internal controls that you care about, and you want to make sure every single department has, like, policies and procedures. I mean, that is important too. just those basics to see if every single department has those basics. And then the risk assessment, the results from that. And then I present their information to you all to do a couple of things to make the next audit decisions, but also see what's coming on the horizon as areas to pay attention to, or that may need some attention, or just be notified earlier rather than later. If there is going to be a problem, you'll know in advance before it becomes a problem.
Stephanie, and again, I'm asking this all innocently. I'm not involved in this in the long run, but it seems to me that if, from my discussion with Beth in terms of, and these materials that she gave me, that if the departments, especially the ones that are more at risk, where they're dealing with money or personnel or other things that would put us at risk and whatever those other words are, that if they had this documentation of these policies and procedures and internal controls, and did an update on them on like a yearly update, that would make it easier for the auditor's office to do its job and get through more audits. Am I correct in thinking that, or is that
correct?
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's essential for us to do our job to make sure. I don't know. Again, I'm getting mixed up with what Beth was telling us, but our responsibility to, as an auditing committee.
So, Carol, did Beth give you material that the committee members may need to see also?
Well, she gave me this and this. I could get some of these things copied that she said she did go through and look at some things. One was actually a guide to good practice for local government. And she said it's actually not from it's from Australia, but she said it was one of the best documents she found. So I could get a link to that and share it with her. I mean, get those from her that she shared. I think what I'm having, like what I'm getting to is that these are sort of abstract concepts. And then as I talked to her, I was getting to understand more how they were actually real things and concrete specific things that one does in a job, or, like I said, having the policies and procedures, doing a report every year that says like how many people you hired, what their.
But wouldn't it be helpful to know what Beth has told you with the materials that she gave you, to look at what Stephanie has and do an overlay, because I think everybody's kind of at a different place here.
Yeah.
But if Stephanie gives you what she has, it may be exactly that, or it may not. But I don't think that I can, in good honesty, especially since Beth is not here, and she did get the information to and I think that's what kind of much water at our last meeting. People just had different information.
Yeah.
Everybody
and
the same info.
And just to clarify, Ovita, kind of actually all the information that she had to share with me, really, it seemed to me that as much of the good practices had to do with what was going on in the departments rather than the auditor's office as well, that was a starting point. The auditor's office was something different. So in a way, it was really more about what was going on in the departments versus what's going on.
Stephanie audits the departments. That's why I said when you see what she has, you'll see what's missing. She's not going in there making up stuff.
Yeah, and I think when Stephanie just said that some departments have their policies and procedures and some don't, and that's what I was really thinking of and maybe to see an example of what some of the departments have and don't have. I'm sorry, I have background noise here. I'm moving.
Madam Chair.
See.
Yeah, Patrick, you want to say something?
Yes, so I want to go back to the risk assessment tool, and maybe it's just me. It's been a long day, but I'm kind of losing confidence in this risk assessment tool, but I'm not that technical to understand, even though we had a presentation on it. But I just want to make sure that from what Ms. Higgins told us, Chairman Higgins told us, that the risk assessment tool is diving deep enough to to look at the problems that we need. We're doing our mission with this risk assessment tool.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear that the risk assessment tool does not in any way, shape, or form take the deep dive, ask the deep individualized questions. I mean, it was basically a survey of kind of surface level questions that applied to all departments. And it's only one small segment of an internal control. And of course, I feel like I am not qualified to fully explicate on this stuff. I don't come from any kind of background that addresses this kind of stuff. And that's why I feel like this committee and this office would greatly benefit from a committee that did include citizens that did have that expertise. I mean, this is even these languages, this language and these kind of code words are words that, most of us don't use in our everyday lives. So that's kind of, I mean, I feel like it's clear that, this committee and this office needs some, some structuring, and some, some like clear goals and clear approaches. But I feel like the task of helping to develop that really needs some expertise, some outside citizen expertise, some apolitical expertise, quite frankly.
In a way, I think, Melissa, that having kind of reviewing, like in a sense, the audit committee needs an internal control system and a policy and procedure of what we're doing and what are and who was on the committee and a review of that. So, because it seems to me that you would be helpful to have someone with more expertise, at least like one or two members. I think that it's not something that should be open to anyone in the community, because I think it is so specialized. You need to get some people with a specialized background.
I would foresee it being, this kind of open call where folks are asked to fill out an application that in which they are, clearly state their credentials.
Mm-hmm. I'm in favor of that.
Does anyone else have thoughts on that as a recommendation to bring forward to the mayor? Maybe discuss with the attorney as well. I mean, I did have some.
What is it?
With the attorney, and he did state that, this committee itself is in no way required or referenced in the charter.
So what's the recommendation?
That we asked the mayor to reform this committee to include at least a couple citizens who have expertise.
A couple. So.
I mean, I personally believe
citizens.
I personally believe that it should be more citizens than anyone associated with the government. I could see a committee having 2 commissioners and 3 citizens. It could possibly be 2 commissioners, a citizen appointed by the mayor, and then 2 citizens who go through an application process that is approved by the whole commission.
Madam Chair, so
yes.
I'm trying to map this out in my head. So they will work with the existing commissioners on the audit committee, or they'll work directly with the risk assessment tool or Automatics. So would it be the same setup that we have now? Ooh. Start over. We can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Sorry, I muted myself. Dogs are barking. I'm talking about, just replacing this committee, reforming the audit committee to include 2 commissioners appointed by the mayor and 3 citizens. And honestly, any committee is completely up to the discretion of the mayor. I mean, so this is just a suggestion, a formal suggestion that we could bring forward to the mayor. And this is just my personal matter, and I've been thinking about it long and hard for several months. I think ideally, a committee that included 2 commissioners and 3 citizens would be ideal. And citizens who would undergo an application process in which they could clearly state and prove their credentials. And that committee could include, one of those citizens could be chosen at the discretion of the mayor. Right now, the entire committee is at the discretion of the mayor, and the entire committee is made up of elected officials who I feel are in many ways too close to the functionings of the government. I really believe that in order to have an objective analysis and interpretation of, any of these audits that come forward or any kind of work plan, you need to have folks that aren't associated with this local government having some input on that.
Would it be correct to say that in addition that the responsibilities of the audit committee need to be clarified and spelled out?
Yes. I think that's also something that needs, I think there's a lot of kind of organizing and structural defining that needs to happen. And I feel like that's something that could happen with a committee that does have expertise.
Commissioner Chairlink?
Yeah.
May I comment on, I want to go back to what Commissioner Davenport said about the risk assessment. I don't want him to lose confidence, but I wanted to provide more context about the overall plan for the risk assessment and the capabilities that you can do with the assessment. The first year, I admit, it was a softball effort, not a waste of time, but an effort to collect pertinent information. But we wanted to see how departments responded to the survey first, and we wanted to make sure the data was valuable second. But there was definitely much more to capture. The information that we have is collated and organized, and the next year the plan was to actually tighten up or revise some of the questions on the survey for the departments. We realized that there were questions that just weren't well written or got to the actual answer that we were looking for. And then after we received the results, review each department's survey, and then schedule meetings with departments where we saw anomalies and continue to collect data, put it and insert that data into our report, and that would go, that would tie into the overall risk assessment. So at the end of the day, the purpose is to help you understand the level of risk, for each department, but also understand what established internal controls each department has, and the internal controls departments need. That was this is a 2 to 3 year plan to achieve those things. I imagine it can be done in the next year. But I just wanted, Patrick to know it wasn't just a survey sent out to departments to collect data and go on a spreadsheet for a ranking. The goal is to provide that information to you so you can see, or the areas of risk are highlighted for you. And then if there's a need for more information from a particular department, that data will point you to which departments to follow up with, or for us to follow up with. And then I think what Chair Higgins communicated last week was the results of the inherent internal controls, the risk assessment results, and the management control system that she asked about with Blaine. The combination of those processes be combined so that eventually there is predictability in how what departments, what employees expect, and what the community citizens expect, and it's the same for everyone, or close to the same for everyone. And where there are weaknesses, they are addressed. Does that make sense?
It does, but now I have even more questions. Okay. Thank you.
Patrick, you want me to give you a call tomorrow? I'd be happy. I know it can be complex because it is a multi-year process in the very beginning, 2 to 3 years, but I'll be happy to break it down even further for you. And I'll show you examples of what I'm talking about. It may make more sense when you see it. I can show you a case study department. If that's helpful.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So where do we go from here, Madam Chair? I mean, do you want to put your proposal on paper, or where do we go?
I mean, I could do that. I could put this proposal on paper. We could vote on that specific proposal right now. I mean, or I could, I could have an informal conversation with the mayor, or a couple of us have an informal conversation with the mayor.
Conversation with the mayor, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I would still like feedback from Chairman Higgins about the risk assessment tool.
Okay, well then let's do that. Let's get some feedback from Ms. Higgins on the risk assessment and how it somehow complies with this internal controls concept. And then maybe next month we can discuss. I mean, I truly believe that we need kind of an organizational, structural reassessment of the role of the committee and its function, interacting with the department and as a liaison with the commission as a whole. But I also believe that whole restructuring should take place with a great deal of, citizen expertise. That's my personal.
Melissa, I think it would be really helpful for us to have a document that makes this, among ourselves, that we're all in agreement about what we're talking about.
Okay.
And I'd offer to work with you, like if you want to jot down ideas, and then I'm coming in here from the outside and sort of putting it together and then bring it back to the committee next. So when Allison's here as well, so we can make sure we're on the same page.
That's a very good idea. I would love to work with you on that. Okay, well then we'll do that. Carol and I will work on a document that we can bring to the committee next month.
And get it to the committee before the meeting.
We'll bring it to the committee like a good week before we actually meet. Does that sound palatable to everybody?
And input from Chairman Higgins.
Yeah.
I will follow up with her and I'll provide that information.
And there are process documents, and I just found my process documents folder. So that's something I can share with you, Carol. I know I have the risk assessment tool somewhere in my folder too. So maybe, Carol, maybe the two, you and I can have a meeting in the next week or so and put our heads together on this.
Okay.
All right. Okay. I don't even think we need to vote on that. That's not any kind of official thing, but does anybody want to?
I know y'all did not leave out the attorney and the small business person on this plan. Oh, Russell is gone. He didn't even hear me make that crack. Oh, there he is. There he is.
No, I want to see it on paper. That's right.
Yeah, he wants it on paper. It's not legal till it's on paper.
I mean, that's how you make a plan,
Okay.
Put it on paper.
Well, Carol and I will come up with a clear document that we can all like set in stone and move forward.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Russell. Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn? We don't have anything else on our agenda, do we?
So moved.
Second.
I second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you guys. And we'll be in touch. Carol and I will get busy.
Good. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.